Hello and welcome to the AEW Dynamite preview. I'm Michael Sidgwick, joined by fellow Dudley boy Michael Hamflett to discuss everything that went down on last night's show. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure to subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts, where we preview and review Dynamite, Collision, Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0, pay-per-views, premium live events. We have wrestler interviews on occasion, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week, not this week potentially, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on wrestle culture. Hamflett.
Yeah.
On this really quite well-received Dynamite, are you the low guy or the tentative praise guy? I really liked it.
I think I've been higher on more AEW this year than this Dynamite. I just have a really good feeling about AEW. Not specifically many wrestlers, but I think the product's in good health. I am anticipating AEW pay-per-view for the first time since All In, realistically. I think the build to Revolution is giving me the most confidence that AEW has found its form again. I just didn't think there was loads on this Dynamite to get massively excited about. I liked it from a character and an angle development point of view. Like, not loads from I need that less, truthfully, from AEW. Like, I like a bit more character development and the sense that I've got less wrestlers to think about and I can be more interested than what they're doing. Was there a massive buzz for this one?
I don't think there was a massive buzz. I think everyone came out of it, at least on my timeline, thinking, that was really quite strong. Some of the matches were really, really quite sharp. This didn't quite hit trifecta, but that was a good thing, not a bad thing, because it had the match quality for me, and it had the most difficult part of the trifecta, which is angles.
Yeah.
Getting me interested or more interested in a match. A lot of these people can wrestle incredibly well. A lot of these people on this roster can promo incredibly well. It's that level of detail and angle work, and I got a bit of it, not quite enough, but a bit of it on this show, which started with Dax Harwood versus Jon Moxley. Now, if you're a regular watcher or listener of this podcast, you'll be au fait with Adam Wilborn's brilliant dramatic readings and almost move-for-move recaps. I'm useless at that. My brain just cannot really compartmentalize and order that kind of thing. So I'm just going to give you my general thoughts and hand over to my colleague, not very esteemed, for his. I really loved this match in a way that I was not expecting. We previewed it yesterday. I mentioned that it was a 2022 TV dream match. They were both on form working that TV match. They've both been overexposed. We've talked about how that's sort of a problem at large with AEW as an entity at present. So I knew the floor was going to be very good, but I wasn't like jazzed about it. I thought this match was awesome. One thing to get out of the way, this is a move I do remember, and this is a spot that is... I hate it. I don't think I've ever liked it. There's a non-consensual kissing spot. Now, I know that professional wrestling is fake. I know that professional wrestlers often work alongside colleagues who they would consider friends, good friends, best friends, or people they can get along with. I know that they agree to this. I think the optics of it are particularly horrendous now. It's not something I've ever enjoyed. I don't even get the point of it. Like,
there was two as well, so it's almost as if to say, like, well, I've evened it up now. So you're kind of allowing it.
I just don't like it, and I just want it out of professional wrestling, to be quite honest. So that put me in a little bit of a mood, a bit of a remove from the match, and then they absolutely beat the piss out of each other. Now, you will listen to or read variations of that phrase to describe a hard-hitting match. Now that sort of fighting spirit, strong style psychology is sort of now inextricable with what an American match looks like these days, right? They beat the piss out of each other. It's more pronounced in this match than most. The way I described it when I was watching it and thinking about it is that, you know the Jackass song from the movie, if you're going to be dumb, you've got to be tough.
Yeah.
That was that match. They wrestled. There was a little bit of strategy late on when they were scouting each other's moves, and it's the big counter-driven finishing sequence. But so much of this, deliberately, was just stupid. Like, they were just stood there absorbing each other's blow. And I think the blows, and I think the biggest theme of the match that I really got into, because it was just really brutally pleasing on a visceral, sicko level, a Neanderthal match, just stubbornness. Like, nah, didn't hurt. Do it again. And I know we see that kind of match. I just thought they did it really well. And they've got the personalities that can do it. Usually, I kind of don't like that about each of them, how hard they want to be or try to be or aspire to be, but it was just so believable, for lack of a better word, that these two in particular would go, knee effect, didn't hurt, forearm flush to the cheek. No, you'll have to do it. And they were clever enough. I'm not saying they were just two meatheads doing dumb jock wrestling, where there was one particular strike exchange where Dax is like, oh, my leg's going a bit here. I can't sell this because I've got this like toxic masculinity facade that I'm trying to work in this match, but yep, it's going. I'm kind of in trouble. I think there's some subtle stuff done here as well. And what I thought was the biggest achievement realistically is that Jon Moxley is the most winningest big wrestler in AEW history. I know like Hook's got the record, and I think Perry got to the most wins the most quickly. Yeah. But in terms of the most big matches, Moxley wins LOL, as you've tried to sort of christen. Dax always loses LOL. He's probably won the odd singles match. I know he beat Cash to advance in the Owen Hart Cup in 2022. Maybe there's a couple of sprinkled in Collision, but he always loses the TV matches. They were getting to that 16th, 17th minute where I'm thinking, this is going to a draw. And what a good way to set up FTR versus BCC as a tag. I really thought this was going to a draw, and I just thought this had untold drama considering where both wrestlers are at. And like Dax just seems happy to work singles matches as long as he gets to do it. Mox kind of likes to win a lot. So I thought it was a real big achievement. And I've done enough effusive praise of this match because I know for a fact, we talked about it earlier, Hamflett did not like it very much.
I'm glad you liked it as much as you did and thus had so much to say, because I felt like watching it this morning and then thinking about this podcast and us sitting down to record it, I felt like what I see out of you, or what I used to see out of you when we'd be talking
Before
about...
I died inside.
When we were talking about yet another Judgment Day tag in 2023, like a tag main event of Raw, Judgment Day versus Insert Babyfaces, that I kind of couldn't wait to get into the studio to talk about. And you were just saying, yeah, action was good. I've got not a single thing left to say about it. I can't summon any thoughts anymore on this action that is happening in front of me. Even though crowds come up for it, even though I can acknowledge that the work is solid, there was not a single bit of inspiration coming to me to be able to analyse it in any way. This was that. I kind of felt as if, maybe it's the point you were making at the start of your analysis where the style has been just so
it's homogenized to all hell.
Homogenized. It was welcomed into North American pro wrestling probably when New Japan got hot.
That's what happened. New Japan got hot and they thought, well, that's the way to get acclaim and to get heat, and that's just it's in vogue.
I so rarely got a feeling that I was watching Jon Moxley and Dax Harwood more that I got two great wrestlers doing that style. It's a theme of this show because I thought this was a good show from the point of view of a promotion. I felt like there was good wrestling promotion throughout the show. And considering this is match to build a match, I thought this was quite effective promotion for the tag. I do want to watch the tag. I think the tag will have personality. I felt for a change this week, the BCC weren't, there was no ambiguity about who the BCC were this week. They're a couple of arseholes. That'll change again in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, say if they're positioned against the Young Bucks or something, they'll have to switch it up. But in terms of the FTR match and what I'm allowing myself to anticipate and expect out of that, a lot to get excited about. Like the exchanges, the idea that FTR, Dax will take his knowledge of Moxley to Cash and they will work on the specific types of cut-offs and moves that can actually stop this seemingly unstoppable man, whilst also thinking about how on earth you deal with the Claudio problem.
Yeah, the human horse.
It's so interesting to me. I love that. And that's why I don't mind this match. I felt zero watching the actual singles match itself. Zero for
it. You should get better taste. One thing I have missed on the recap is that in the post-match, the finish, which is really important, I just missed it. So the finish is a kick your ass. Moxley has Dax at the Bulldog choke. There is that wave of the arm, he's kind of okay, then nah, it's relentless, I have to tap. Moxley refuses to relinquish the hold. This summons an infuriated Cash Wheeler, who tries to go to town on Mox, and those punches, I love Cash Wheeler so much. More Cash Wheeler singles matches, please. That could genuinely be a good device, because that FTR pop, by the way, is non-existent now.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's not just that, the new Road Warrior pop that they were getting in 2022, it was barely even a pop, and I think Dax had to drop a hard F. That F-bomb, let's effing go, he said on the ramp, because he kind of needed that adrenaline. Maybe Cash Wheeler doing singles matches would help. I don't know. Maybe it's just the lifespan of an act. Who the hell knows? But Cash Wheeler came down. He tried to get vengeance for his partner. His punches to Moxley looked great. It looked like you've just taken the piss, done something horrible, and I'll do it back to you. Like Cash Wheeler so goddamn underrated.
Especially off the back of the collision brawl. That was super heated.
Yes.
They don't like each other.
Yeah.
You know, this is already a pre-established disliking.
Indeed. But because Dax is already weakened, when Claudio comes in, they're able to get the jump on FTR, if you like. Then later in the show, it is announced that on next week's Dynamite, it's going to be FTR versus Claudio and Mox. Interesting, because I thought, that's your Revolution match. So there's going to be, you'd expect, either a gimmicked version of that or something different. It's just a weird detour that I'm into.
Oh, God, I've only just thought about something. It's not even like you can get to the tag belts until after Revolution. So maybe you're setting up a match for big business, like Young Bucks New Champions versus one of these two teams. What if, not to worry you, what if this spirals out a little bit and it's BCC versus FTR Supergroup with whoever, I don't know, pick your partners, for Revolution.
Absolutely wonderful. Just what I wanted to hear. I had the exact same fear myself. And after that, we go to the back and, my cock got ripped off in this moment because it was announced by Don Callis that the re-debuting, I guess, or the full-time debuting Will Ospreay will wrestle at Revolution Konosuke Takeshita.
Oh, my God.
I mean, that should be absolutely out of this world. The reasoning was a bit weird. Basically, he said that following the wins of Powerhouse Hobbs and Takeshita over Chris Jericho, that no one even wants to come near the Callis family to wrestle them. It's not really up to them anyway. It's up to Tony Khan. But regardless...
I was kind of the last guy on the roster to fight the Callis family.
Indeed. Oh, my God. So Callis says, look, we want to exhibit the fact that we're the best. So we're going to have a match between the Callis family to do that. And then was it pointed out to him that was a bit weird? And then by Renee Paquette.
Yeah.
And then Callis in response said, well, my parents used to make me, my brothers fight in the backyard all the time, and that worked out okay.
Once my dad had a few beers, he'd send us out back to fight. And as it was sport for his dad.
And I love the punchline. I worked out okay. And it's like, well, he's one of the biggest sort of sociopaths in the promotion. I thought that was quite cute. Look, it feels like... I said this, and it's not like a hot take or anything insightful. Will Ospreay is coming in as a babyface.
Yeah.
He needs to distance himself from Don Callis and the family as soon as possible. This match at Revolution, in addition to being the most spectacular, horrifyingly, physically impactful, brutal match you could think of in the world right now, they're going to kill each other, basically, is a mechanism to make the thing that needs to happen. And I think the reasoning, as thin as it isn't terrible.
No, the match
could be worse.
The match is great. But
basically, this match exists to be the match, and it's one of the better matches that can justify this really thin reason for why it's happening. This pre-contrived reason for why it's happening.
Do you know what I love, though? And this is what I want to make a big point of why this feels different and why I don't want to come across like a hypocrite of the cards I was criticising at the back end of last year. All Out was the one that sticks out because people love that card, and it was just a bit much for me. But the reliance on matches of a quality of what we can anticipate out of Ospreay and Takeshita was vital to the pay-per-views last year because the TV was pretty weak or the stories that they're telling weren't that engaging.
It's like a bonus now, isn't it?
This is Revolution already is a card with range, and I was going to say it's only half full. It's probably only a quarter full.
Sadly, that's my only worry now.
It's got such range, and right now we have our killer potential 5-star match on the card, whilst not to say that the Young Bucks can't work magic with Darby Allin and Sting, but you know what I mean?
I know.
That top-level 5-star singles match, we have the opportunity to present the very best match in the world. It's not an unfair expectation to put on this that they will be chasing match of the year honours with this. And it's Ospreay's formal debut in AEW or as an AEW wrestler. So great. Not everything in Revolution has to be that. It's, they can all do different jobs. That's what a perfect pay-per-view should be, really, when you're aspiring for perfect. Don Callis establishing himself as kind of, he's found that Paul Heyman role, hasn't he? So Kenny, this was much the same. When he came back with Kenny, the turn was inevitable.
Yeah.
Kenny was with him until basically not so much a babyface turn, but Callis turns on Kenny. It's going to happen on Ospreay. I like the booking. I genuinely do. I worry a bit because Callis has got form now. I worry that what looks like a great match and Will Ospreay's launching pad becomes in the summer. Who are we talking about again? Don Callis. It should be, they need to fix that. In 2024, it needs to be about the wrestlers and not him. But he is integral to getting Ospreay started.
Yeah, indeed. Up next on the show, a bit of an unnecessary segment. Wardlow defeats an enhancement talent named Barrett Brown, I'm reliably informed. He's got a big brace on his knee, but evidently he is able to work through it. It's a two-move match, where the second move is utterly pointless because the first one is so devastating. He does, I forget the name of it. It's the GTS where he does it. He drags him from the top turnbuckle into his knee. He then parades around the ring after some posing and taunts with the powerbomb position, slams him down. There you go. And I guess the cute detail here, and that's a bit of a stretch, is that Adam Cole joins for commentary, except he doesn't need to commentate because there's barely any match to commentate upon, and then says, thank you for the conversation or something, and Wardlow wins. Again, this feels like, I don't like it because the ranking system will eventually reflect this win, even though it only exists for Wardlow to transparently go up the rankings at some point after Revolution.
Yeah.
Like, anyone could do that. I don't really buy it. It's just fake stat padding, the likes of which we used to see on Dark, which is not good. We've never said the ranking systems are perfect.
Yeah.
We just said they are sort of necessary given the sporting vibe AEW tries to attempt. And realistically, like, the whole point of a squash match is when you are launching a new character, right? The whole point is you say, right, okay, obviously there's raw potential. This is exciting. Like, how awesome do these power moves look? Let's see if one day they can put it all together and work the necessary, obligatory back and forth. That has to happen at some point, as much as we see it too often all over the card. We kind of know at this point that Wardlow's not ideal at it. I don't think he's terrible at it, but my God, there's scores of wrestlers on that roster who can do the main event match better than he does. So what is this for? It feels like, it just feels doomed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If not doomed, if that's too cynical, it certainly feels like, well, we know what's next.
I feel like there's pros and cons to this. I think Wardlow, obviously the knee maybe isn't perfect. So they're thinking, well, we want to use him, but obviously a squash is what he does anyway. But the fact that he's not going to sort of have any more bother with his leg while he gets recovered. The thing for me is him being featured. I think I like the presentation of the Undisputed Kingdom here. I did like the Cole commentary bit, and I liked Wardlow. The fact that Wardlow is being used at all, when my criticism would have been, where's he gone? Like, the last thing you need in this stable right now is to not really be featured. So the fact that putting him out there shows this commitment to the cause. I think your point about the rankings is key.
You could describe it as an obligation.
No,
a narrative obligation.
Well, but a worthy one. Okay. I think, like, if you're trying to get this Wardlow character back to where he once was, you need to keep at it. I think you need to, like, it's one of them situations where you do need to remind the viewers as often as possible that he is a threat, because he has been.
But he's just beaten some guy.
Well, this is the thing, right? He has been lapped by a lot of people in
Triple H,
in a lot of people's minds of, who are going to be like not just a big monster, an AEW original done good. There's loads of wrestlers that have overtaken him, but I think by using him like this, even though he's clearly injured, it's them wanting to get him on television, and I think that's a plus. The rankings issue is an interesting one. There is no harm to both the ranking system and to Wardlow's credibility if on commentary they just say, they don't need to give you specifics, they just say, well, obviously different opponents have a differing effect on the rankings.
Yes.
I don't need them to do that. Cody Rhodes, well, every body part is going to be 6% damage or whatever. That would have been stupid. But I can absolutely buy that this win here isn't anywhere near as good for his ranking position as, let's say, Hangman Page drawing with Swerve. I can get that.
Yeah.
One match is bigger and harder and has higher stakes. I can totally buy that, and I think most wrestling fans can. That little bit of extra effort is needed with this Wardlow push, because, as you say, otherwise we just get back to the stat padding days, and that was really deflating, wasn't it, when you didn't even realise a wrestler had just rocketed up in the background. Now, if anything, you use that against the Undisputed Kingdom. Adam Cole is trying to put his monster against a bunch of losers in order to game the system, and just have the commentators, Tony Khan, whoever, say, no, that's not how this system works. Yes, all the wins are going to get him to the title shot, but it's 20 of these losers for one Hangman Page.
Yeah.
For example, as long as you acknowledge that, I think this can go again.
I'll let it play out, but away from the explanations, I just don't feel it from Wardlow. I just don't feel it. And that
You're not alone. You're not alone.
The emotion will trump data, numbers, rankings every single day. And I don't think they'll lose sight of that, but just feels, I don't want to say a waste of time, but it feels like it's going to be a slog, a real slog. And if you get Nakada and Ospreay in, and then you're building Wardlow, who we know didn't really do it at the TNT title level, to be a main event talent, it just feels like, I don't know, like the ship has sailed.
A busted push.
Adam Copeland and Daniel Garcia went to an ultra-rare no contest thanks to interference from the patriarchy next, and I thought the timing of the two big heel finishes on the show was both tremendous. You don't want these really great matches so close to Revolution, which is kind of sold on the strength of great matches and your emotional investment. I thought it was a really sharp idea to have both this match and then the Young Bucks match later on the show end just when you were getting into it.
Yeah.
Because then if you...
This one especially, because then
This
you
one
risk
especially.
it. You risk it. Rip off. Like, if, obviously, the finish is supposed to exist for artistic reasons,
Yes.
not making the punters feel like they've been cheated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you... We talked about this with... I guess old world WWE so often, like the heat is with the booker. We know how it works.
Yeah.
I never feel like a heel for cheating is, you know, a dickhead who I resent as a result. But because every result is so clean and definitive in AEW elsewhere, if you do this every now and then, it really works. And I was like, are you dickhead Christian Cage?
He's
You
done it.
dickhead Christian
He's done it
Cage?
as well, hasn't he?
I
He's the one
think
that's
so.
taking the most advantage of this.
Yeah.
And it's like, and again, it's one thing enough that his whole character is based on carrying his belt that he's never really deserved.
Yeah.
And this is another part of that, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's a basic thrust, is that Garcia kind of has Edge's number throughout. It's really direct strategy to try and get at that leg. He wrestles it wonderfully. This is really quite slow burn, nice, elegant, professional wrestling. So Garcia's wrestling through the arm that Copeland targets. Copeland's wrestling through the leg that Garcia targets. It sounds boring when you say it out loud, but generally it was really quite elegant and slow burn. And it all links to this one really, really cool spot where, so Edge has got his leg worked on the entire match, then he eventually kind of fights through it, doesn't forget that it hurts, and he's about to do the spear, bursting out of the corner, but then he just realizes, oh God, that hurts, limps, and then Garcia just jams him with the jackknife pin after a punt. And it really feels, because it's timed out so well, oh, is this the moment? Because they've done such a good job as well of establishing Garcia as someone above that level of really good wrestler who exists to take pins, basically, by winning a lot on Collision of late. So the talk was, could there be a shock in the air? And notably, there's ambiguity. Copeland doesn't beat him. I don't know if that is to protect Garcia ahead of other ventures. I don't know if that's because he's got a big part to play in this storyline or what. I'll get to the post-match because I always forget. So the patriarchy interfere, rare no contest. The patriarchy beat down both Garcia and Copeland, mainly Copeland. Copeland gets back into it, gets nutted by, what's she called again? Nick Wayne's mom. Nick Wayne's mom.
A mother.
A mother. And then he gets concertoed.
Yes.
Now, nothing really gets sold in wrestling anymore. But you'd think with them two, there's an idea to have Copeland off TV for weeks.
This was really weird, isn't it? Are you going to mention what the commentator said? Like, he walked back.
What?
He got back on his feet. We know.
I
this.
completely forgot. I missed that.
We know this in kayfabe that apparently he was able to get back to the locker. He's going to be all right. Because I was with you. I was
all
like,
people Copeland would do the concerto, and then I had this fantasy booking in my head of, he's going to miss Revolution because of this.
Disappearing.
Garcia gets to Revolution. That drives a resentment heel turn.
it could still do it.
Why do it then?
Because he could be selling like head injury and stuff, even though he's come
right.
round
So in
on-
his next match, he gets cleared.
Yeah.
By an incompetent medical staff, and then he's like, "Oh, hang on, I'm a bit woozy here."
Yeah.
Let it play out, because you'd think out of all the people in AEW, Adam Copeland would know how to sell or want to sell the concerto. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Really, really loved the match.
It was class, wasn't it?
Loved it. It's unfair to consider Adam Copeland a wish Christian Cage, but sometimes it does come across that way in terms of his patter, in terms of him having that similar but not quite the same ability to know the whens and the whys of where to put things in matches. Christian is next level, but above almost everybody in wrestling at that. But Edge, Adam Copeland, is really good at that too. We talked yesterday on the preview about how he kind of mastered it as a heel in the mid-2000s in WWE. It was one of the reasons why he was one of the only people to get booed against John Cena, wasn't it? He cracked the code like so few did in that era.
Got booed here, I should mention as well.
And he played into that. What I felt I was watching here was Adam Copeland being wise and experienced enough to know that that was a possibility, not a guarantee, but a possibility. And then as it occurred in the match, remembering that he's in a different company where the kind of creative expression is going to be rewarded rather than chastised. When he did the Garcia dance for the Heat, notably with his back to the hard camera, by the way, he just saw a section of the fans and thought, I'm going to have some patter with you here. And he kind of put himself over as the, not cocky, but overconfident veteran that maybe the point of the dance was, I don't really take this guy seriously.
Yeah.
So then when you get into the real guts of it later on, as you say, that finish especially, or the near finish, at this point, he has wrestled his way into forcing me to respect him. I should have done this more before the bell.
Yeah.
I'm a babyface, I'm virtuous, and I haven't taken him seriously enough, and I will learn from my mistake next time. Like an artistic triumph for me. Daniel Garcia is back. Daniel Garcia is all the way back. The same wrestler that I instantly fell in love with when he first broke out big in, it was 2021 when I found him, and then he almost immediately landed in AEW. Which was great because I couldn't have been any higher on him. And then he gets these little showcase opportunities here and there. And we loved when he was analysing his own defeats on Twitter and stuff like that.
Gave himself room to improve.
Yeah, that wrestler is back. And I actually like that it's the one saving grace of a mostly terrible run alongside Chris Jericho is there isn't actually any harm in keeping a couple of the bits that got you over. And I think we're starting to see the fully formed Daniel Garcia. There's no problem in being the Red Death wrestler with the dance that pops the crowd. Yeah. And he's finding the way to do both, and it's giving his opponents new things to do within the matches as well. Like a total success, and like a nice forward into the Christian Cage storyline within it. It almost tacitly suggests that Christian Cage doesn't want any of Daniel Garcia either. Yeah. It's a bonus for him, for neither of them that get near his title.
I will say that one of my absolute least favourite devices, and this is very WWE, and Copeland and maybe even Christian Cage, we probably collaborate with Tony Khan on these storylines. I mean, evidently they do. Maybe have that WWE brain in them. If this goes to a three-way at Revolution, I'll probably be a bit cross. One, there's already one on the show. Two, Christian Cage doing that age-old, well, if I chin them both or attack them both, that means I get no one to wrestle. Oh, that's both. I've made a right blunder there. I hate it.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate it. I know the baby faces are meant to be clever, but the heels can't be that stupid. So I hate it, and I conditional hate this, actually.
What if the rankings just step in and answer that question for us, and there's another challenger that is in the rankings, and Christian Cage, well, it's fallen to so-and-so, so I'll give them the shot.
We'll see. There's a lot of faith in these rankings.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's being rewarded quite yet, but it's another development that we will let play out. I didn't like the next part of the show very much. I didn't see many people raving about it. I didn't see many people having an opinion about it, and I think that is because it had advanced very, very little. So basically, Hamflett, as you know, what happens is that ahead of the show, they say, we will hear from Samoa Joe, Swerve Strickland, and Hangman Page, right? Yeah. Now, because it's not fake, you think, all right, we're going to get separate interviews, or we're going to get a 3-person sit-down or a 3-person in-ring. Promo trains are premised on interruptions. They advertised a promo train. What if Swerve and Page just didn't want to come out?
Yeah.
False advertising. You know what I mean? You cannot. Promo trains are contrived enough as it is without literally advertising one. So I had problems with the way this was all set out. It just felt like, what have we got for these next week? I'm hoping we know what we've got 2 weeks before the show, a great heat angle or a great twist or the best material for their go-home promos. What's for this week? Something. So we got something this week. That something was Samoa Joe comes out first and his delivery is unbelievable. He gets great heat, even with a pretty wonky logic line. He basically comes out, addresses the fact that it's going to be a 3-way, and then says, well, they've found a way to make it just like Texas. They've made my match bigger and dumber. And again, it is dumb in triple threat matches, 3-way matches are dumb. The champion shouldn't have to not be there for the fall. I mean, that's just ridiculous, that. It's one of those things where
they're hanging a lampshade almost really on the thing being bad.
Yeah.
And then them booking it anyway.
it's just been normalized. It's one of those things in wrestling that's just been normalized. It's never really made the most sense. It's not fair, and you want AEW to be the fair league. Anyway, so Joe comes out, his delivery's so good that he can hang a lantern on something and it's fine. And that draws out Swerve, who I'm a big Swerve Strickland guy. I've been saying for as long as he has, realistically, which is part of the problem. Yeah, strap him up. Give him a run at it. Yep. He's earned it. He's hot. He feels like a player. In a meritocracy, Swerve Strickland, out of 2023, was probably the guy who was most deserving to take that title, if not Joe. And he just says the same thing he's been saying for a long time. He's been grinding for 15 years. It's all pretty generic wrestling.
This is that premise re-establishment stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, where it's
just like the stuff that I really don't like in WWE and why I didn't like this, where he basically says the same things he's been saying for a long old time. I've been grinding for 15 years. I'm since become undeniable. I'm one of the best in the world. I need that title to prove it. I've heard this. Hangman Page comes out, and I love and hate this in equal measure.
I know why you love it.
Right, he references a drill tweet. One of the best drill tweets, which accurately captures how people are just have this desperate veneer to win on the internet, even though no one ever wins. No one ever wins. That's the problem with the internet and socials and all the rest of it. So the famous drill tweet, if you don't know, is, please, I'm not mad. Please don't put it in the newspaper that I'm mad. And then Hangman Page, who's just brilliant, says, like, I'm not mad. Don't put it in the weekly Dynamite report that I got mad. Okay, but this is horse. Shh.
Yeah.
His explanation, it's another problem with the ranking system that I don't want to bury. I do not want to bury this ranking system. I've tried to manifest it since it was abandoned in the first place. But correct me if I'm wrong at any point. Nicholas, you can step in, our wonderful, handsome producer. Swerve was 1, Hangman was 2.
Yep.
Okay. Swerve is 2-1-0 now against Hangman Page. 2 wins, a draw, and a loss.
Yeah.
Tainted though they may be, which is Hangman Page's problem, it's still on the record. So 1 and 2 go to a draw, and they become 1-1. That's Joe's problem with it.
Yeah.
Hangman's 2, but he doesn't think 1 is worthy of being 1, even though he's beaten 2 twice.
It's Hangman's heel logic where it falls down for me. This I can take the 1-1. I can take a draw, and the problem I guess comes is that they probably both should have been 1-1 going into the match.
Yes, not 1
rather
and 2.
than 1 and 2, because that's where, like, and I don't think that's Page's fault. I think he's trying to make sense of it as part of this heel turn.
I think he overthought it, but he can't make sense of it either.
No,
so it's a double-edged sword.
Maybe because he's a heel, it doesn't matter that he can't fashion out a thing that makes sense, because that's almost informing.
He's meant to be clutching at things.
Maybe they should have left it at 2, booked the match, and then him arguing, well, I'm just as deserving as you are. And Swerve at least can then say, you're literally not as deserving as me. Look at the rankings. You are number 2 and I'm number 1, and you have been lucky that they have decided to put us both in this match instead of just me. Maybe that would have been a smarter way to do it, because then the heel would have been lying to themselves. Hangman is using flawed logic, but they are both 1, so he's right as well.
It's weird. It's just weird. It's weird. It's a bit mixed up. I feel like they've got to the end of the story. The match has been established. It's confirmed now. Yeah. I don't know where they go with this. I'm assuming and / hoping that they've got something more to do in the weeks to come. This felt very much like we've got the killer lines for the go home. We've got a heat angle, a pull apart. Let's just maintain. And it was just a bit boring and maybe a bit overthought at the same time. I'm bang up for the match because I think they've done a good job. Wonky ranking stuff notwithstanding, I get it. You've got the 2 best guys who aren't yet the champion, and they cannot be separated for different reasons. One can't beat the other clean. The other can't beat the other clean, as we've seen. There's no separation between them. I get it, but I think I'm done with it until the match.
Yeah,
It's always an inherent problem with 3-way matches and building them anyway.
It is.
It's just hard.
It's difficult to do. I didn't mind any individual promos.
It's their own fault for doing it, but I am excited.
I didn't really feel like the promos particularly crashing into each other. I felt like they could have been delivered on separate podiums and had nothing to do with the other. It never felt like there was the verbal back and forth didn't really feel authentic. So I've got to come out and say what my character is currently thinking. Well, I'm saying what I don't know that Joe's going to be I think he's going to be a transitional champion. I think Swerve's winning at Revolution, but let's assume he is for this, right? But there's there's two sides to
Never assume.
Yeah, there's two sides to being a transitional champion. One is what we've discussed. I think you made the point within the Hook feud, which was just when Tony Khan was looking to try and re-establish this relationship and the bond with a fan base that he may be alienating in 2023.
You get the most universally credible guy who no one hates.
So reliable. The aid of that is that, and I said this to you yesterday off air, I think the top of the card in AEW feels a little lightweight at the moment, and this promo was quite lightweight. Swerve, talking about his 15-year career, should be a lot more. It should be sitting down with Jim Ross. You know, there's a setting for Swerve to tell you why this is his moment and he's ascending. This was not that. And when they're literally not in the main event because the Sting program feels bigger, I understand why you would almost want it to fit in that semi-main spot rather than the top of the card, but it's still weird in AEW when the world title doesn't feel like the top thing. But like I say, that's the double-edged sword of what the spot Joe's in. If you're there to just be Mr. Reliable, also you stand a chance of your programs not necessarily having the most fire to them.
Maybe Tony Khan / AEW has undermined this yet further. Swerve felt unequivocally like the guy in late 2023, so much so that when the Joe MGF match happened and you think, I think Joe's winning, it was like, what about Swerve?
Yeah.
It has to be Swerve. Mm-hmm. They're signing Okada and they've got Ospreay. And now it's like, oh, well, Ospreay kind of has to be the champion, or Okada should be pushed as the ultimate ace to get the maximum value out of him. They've already, before he's even become the man, kind of undermined Swerve's claim for being the man.
Did you see, I think it was Suit Williams, I apologise if it was somebody else on X, just set, like, and it wasn't this sort of intentional hot take, it was just an opinion. Bring Okada in and strap him up straight away. Like, and as soon as I read that, that's the first time since we've had all these Okada, which sides you're going to go to, where I've thought, I've just seen the vision of something I actually want to see out of Okada in AEW.
The Rainmaker Shock Part 2.
Exactly that. And
he has to be the best.
And I agreed with it, and then straight away, lots of, what about Swerve? And I thought, what about Swerve? And then, because the pitch was, I think, Okada Joe big business, and it would be massive, as you say, Rainmaker Shock adjacent, and Okada's got the belt, immediately credible. Nobody would question it. And
what about the rankings?
The top matches feel mega fresh, as opposed to all of these chats where we've like, how do you really want to see these Okada matches? They're not him with the belt. You do.
Yeah.
And then, as you say, have you accidentally reduced Swerve's status at the worst possible time? I don't know. We'll see. I think you strap him up at Revolution. I think almost in light of the fact that you're going out on a big heel victory with the Young Bucks, it gets to, you hide it. Like Swerve is maybe not a confetti and streamers title win. It's big for him. And then you watch that title reign develop and build as you go along. So I even think it's a perfect place and the way for him to win the belt in this setting. But I wish it was, for these three, I wish it was Revolution tomorrow.
Yeah, I know.
Which is sometimes an issue.
Same. Up next, it was the Wet Ink, the eagerly awaited next feature by Toneless Toni Storm on AEW Dynamite. As expected, the whole gist is that she's covering up the tattoo where she previously had a matching one with Deonna Purrazzo. She narrates footage of the tattoo being inked, and some of her lines are fantastic, and she builds it and builds it and builds it. So she's basically talking about how Deonna Purrazzo was her young girl. She got signed to a major. She took her under her wing in Japan, and, she suckled at the teat of Timeless Toni Storm. Toneless Toni Storm, where are my manners? So she suckled at the teat, and then she bit the tit that fed. Wonderful line. All of this is really funny, genuinely effective. The tattoo, we didn't get it right because it was a bit of a basic idea, I think. The tattoo is the tattoo with one half of a dagger, the handle, if you like, and then the blade underneath either side. A dagger's going through the heart of Deonna Purrazzo, basically. Right. And then we go to the back to get Deonna Purrazzo's reaction to this, lifelong commitment of a tattoo in theory, right? And then she goes, it's heartbreaking. I'll break her arm, bitch. Right. Two things I'd like to point out. I give this an up on whatculture.com/WWE if you want a transcript of this podcast, on my part in it at least, right? I gave it an up because it was a creative beat in the best women's story AEW's told in well over a year, if not longer, okay? And Toneless Toni was really, really strong in her bit of it, right? One, if this is a real tattoo, right? I know people get them like to eat hot dinners these days, right? But it's still kind of like I'm still going to the effort of changing my body, essentially, right? And I've got one. I've got a tattoo, so I'm not anti-tattoo or anything like that. I'm going to show you. Different day.
Different podcast.
Different podcast.
What culture nights?
What culture nights? If it is a real tattoo, right? You've got to sell it more than that. It was so undersold. Not Deonna Purrazzo's fault. She was told you have to stand there for 10 seconds and like it.
It was as if she'd like seen an advanced copy of the film and she'd had like a few days to process it. Yes. It wasn't just, right now you're getting on live telly. This is less than ideal. I've just got a camera in front of my face while I
She could have had like 5 minutes to talk about the friendship or something. If it's a fake tattoo and she's got a henna or a temporary that lasts longer, I don't know how any of this works. My tattoo was like half a lifetime ago. I'm so old. Pretend it's real because it's wrestling. You can work these things and it's still the same difference. What are your thoughts on all this?
I liked it before.
Said the word tits. That is an up in my book every single time.
I just liked it unequivocally before the Deonna Purrazzo reaction. That's the reality of this. This was a really, like the...
just ideas, details.
The toneless Toni Storm character has drawn the most criticism when they've done these mini-movies, when they've done these out-of-the-ring presentations.
This is tethered to...
Yeah, this is the way you do these mini-films, these little presentations, because as long as it's within the... Going right back to the first time she, like, even did the promo where she first threw the shoe and her hair was disheveled with, like, Lexi Nair on Collision. As long as, and that was because she'd lost the title to Hikaru Shida days earlier. As long as it is rooted in reality, this character works really well.
And it helps when it's funny as well.
Yeah, and she's super committed to it. It looked great. It sounded great. So it's the best in every respect.
Production values. That's what he likes.
It's what matters the most. It's the best of all of these so far. By far. And as you say, a tattoo's like super committed. So you're watching it going, Jesus, if this is real, wow. Remember Jericho pitched it for him and Punk? And Punk was game for it. And you think, God, yeah, that would have been an incredible visual. The Purrazzo thing was just a little bit TNA coded. They were guilty of this. Like 99 times out of 100, how to kill something that you've just done a really good job of is by having the next segment almost underplay it and undersell it. Purrazzo... Maybe she just knew it was coming. Maybe they were trying to have the cake and eat it a bit and say, look, Purrazzo's a smart baby face, and when she reads wet ink, she knows what's...
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, sometimes you got to fake this in wrestling.
I don't know, I just feel so undersold. You know why? It's because women were involved and it's AEW.
Yeah, like no time. It's time and commitment, isn't it?
It's timeless.
It's timeless. It is literally timeless. We're giving you 5 seconds.
Yes.
Listen and get
it's just really, I was just like, oh, wait.
I think it'll be fine. Like, I think
I'd say I'm all in now.
Buzzing for the match. I still think I love it.
They could do nothing else. I think it's been a really well told story.
We talked about this on another podcast, them using like ankle-based offense is old world AEW, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like building, like they haven't really attacked before and then they're building it into this match.
Yeah.
I think the match is going to be fantastic on the night.
Yeah.
So much to it.
My only worry is, and I know we're weeks ahead, stepping on our own fortnight away dicks, is that it's the slot.
Yeah.
It's like that card is looking ridiculous already, and you know what Tony's going to do.
They can make him follow Ospreay
and put 8 more matches on top of everything. We'll see. Maybe that's unwarranted cynicism.
Give them the opener.
We'll see.
They're not getting the main. Give them the opener. The hottest crowd.
They'll never get an opener. I've been trying to manifest that one for a long time, and it just ain't happening. Up next, the Young Bucks, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, to use their God-given names, even though it's Matthew and Nicholas Massey, which is a good bit.
Please,
defeated
Matthew Ron John.
Defeated Top Flight. Now, this is very much old world, the detail that I like out of AEW. For the second consecutive match, they wrestle in the blood-stained white suits, which are now developing a brownish tint, just to really sort of reflect just how, like, long ago it's been, how much it's lingering in your memory. I think that's a really good detail, right? Okay. How to describe this match? It is, if you are expecting a Young Bucks versus Top Flight, capital B, banger, I would argue it's not the time or place. Not that at all. It was weird. Like, so basically, they are experimenting the Young Bucks with the idea of, right, we are being proper heels now. We've kind of done the hyperactive, bratty heel stuff our entire careers. I think there's like a more maturity to the layout here. They went a bit long on their heat sequences, and they're slowing it down.
It's 2024 Mick Foley anti-hardcore. He's an ECW, and the thing that's going to piss them off the most is him grabbing a headlock.
Yes.
And going against everything Cactus Jack has ever done.
They were dialing down those high spots. I mean, they still came off the top turnbuckle. You don't decide to be... If you're Nick Ellis or Matthew Jackson, you don't then decide, right, we'll have to be Timothy Thatcher now. That's obviously not how it works, but you do rein it in to a degree.
Do you know what impresses me the most about them reining it in? Because you're right, they have to go up to the top once in a while. We've talked about this before. Sometimes to get these reviews in, we might have to watch wrestling on 1.25 or 1.5.
I don't.
It helps me a lot in the mornings.
I'll skip all the entrances instead, which is his favourite thing.
They've, often true, they've somehow managed to control their bodies to 0.75. How are they doing that? Like, it's the way they're hitting the ropes and the way they're that's a movement thing that's so impressive.
Well, here's the thing, right? I'm doing Triple H again. He's infected us all. So I've got 2 points to make about why this worked, even if it wasn't a great match. First of all, if they wanted to do 12 minutes, let's just go 1.75 speed, 1,000,000 miles per hour, whatever, and get an easy 4.5.
Yeah.
They could do that in their sleep.
And I think this would have been worse for it.
And this would have been worse for it. This makes so much sense within the context of their characters to do a longer heat than we're accustomed to basically, the Young Bucks have now evolved into a team where they are the ones who deprive fans of that exhilaration and investment. Like, they are the ones now who, when Top Flight in an early sequence motion to do an over-the-top stereo dive, and it was the Bucks who went, high spot, no, we're going to walk away from that. Yeah. They are the ones who deprive you of the high-risk thrill in the matches now. That'll take some getting used to. 2 is the fact that they are not only deliberately restricting their own movement, as much as I like the visual, the suits aren't helping. You could feel, like, can you imagine wrestling in, like, jeans? I know some wrestlers do.
Moxley had to get the magic ones in the Dean Ambrose years, didn't he? That were, like, stretchy or something, because real jeans were killing.
They look like they are wrestling in suits, and that is because they are, but that did sort of harm it a little bit. Keep the jackets. There's enough blood on those jackets, and wear tights. It just felt like they were wrestling in suits. And another point is to slow it down a little bit, and all the rest of it for what we've just said. But those suits, you can't really wrestle in those suits. I felt a bit like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Watching them wrestle in those suits.
You know where this is going, don't you?
Where is it?
So they're going to make spandex suits for Revolution. It's going to be like quadruple juice. Like, it's going to be their blood staying in their new, like, working suits.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm worried that they're going to wrestle in these suits until Revolution. It's like, keep the jackets, but wear just trunks and tights. One thing I will say is that because it's the Young Bucks, and they are not only restricting their own movement, they are wearing attire that restricts their movement further still, right? It still can't help itself but resemble a banger by the last third of the match. It just can't. Like, some of this was awesome. Like, there's a move where Danny uses Darius to use Matt Jackson as a platform to launch into a DDT. Nick Jackson's just getting kicked in the face or kicking people in the face or whatever. Like, it still breaks out into something incredibly exhilarating, even when that was not the point. They're just so good that they are so good at showcasing the strengths of their opponents. And obviously you've got the excitement quota, because Top Flight were doing Top Flight stuff, and they were attacking them from the skies and all the rest of it, and doing convoluted sequences. So you still got excitement out of it, but it's just again, it's going to take a while to get used to the Young Bucks depriving you of excitement when that's been their whole thing.
Yeah,
Talk about the finish after you got your thoughts on the body of the match.
Somehow, I think I like this even more than you. Like, long-time listeners, viewers will be aware of my biases, and you know how much I love the Young Bucks. So that's going to come through here. This is the best thing on the show by miles for me. If the story is good, wrestle for the story more than the wrestling. Don't wrestle
bangers on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
don't wrestle enough of them. You get enough of them.
Yeah, don't wrestle for wrestling. Never more than ever do I believe this as well. Don't wrestle for wrestling's sake if you've got a better story that, like, you can feed into instead on television. Definitely. Like, we've talked, a lot this year about the, like, inherent flaws of weekly episodic wrestling and overexposure and all the rest of it. I want so much more of this drawn-in Young Bucks. So much more of it. And as you say, it's
Sting soul patch goatees we should put over as well.
amazing touch. Like, that feels final form, doesn't it? That's good to go. Like the fact that, as you say, it just sort of burst out with them anyway at the end feels like a perfect compromise to me. I'm watching, I can immediately adjust to this new Young Bucks style, really enjoy it because it's completely in character, and then I get bonus wrestling when I actually want it because they're making me like hungry for it a little bit. They're actually making me
want to see them
something.
get their asses kicked.
Yeah, I don't want to watch Young Bucks Top Flight 2020 right now because that's not what the Young Bucks are doing, and Top Flight should have advanced too. I want something that makes sense in the right now. The Young Bucks are wrestling, and this is again. I hope I'm not like onto a loser here, and it is going to be this. It's Sting. It's the Sting pay-per-view. It's going to go on last. It's not just that they're finally getting their tag team pay-per-view main event. They're a main event act. They're as a tag team and just a tag team, not elite based, not like any. This is a main event act, and they feel to me like the biggest stars they've ever felt in their own promotion. Maybe
2021 is different.
Maybe with the exception because the elite were just such an unbelievable force of nature for that product in 2021, but just the Young Bucks on their own as this team, they've never felt more big time, and they're going into this enormous, evocative match with Sting and Darby Allin. I want them on every show, and I know we're not going to get that because they've skipped themselves to the top. I was hoping for more of these to get them to the tag title match. It's a shame they've just sprinted to it instead.
It was a personalised graphic rather than an official AEW rankings graphic, so there might be a twist in this tale yet, and I'll trust the Young Bucks to do it. Post-match, this is the important thing. So the finish is, as I mentioned earlier, just as they can't help themselves but work great matches, right? Just as it was starting to really fizz, they do the nut shot, EVP trigger, it's over. That's their new sort of finishing sequence, which I think is important because you don't want to give them the exhilaration. That's not where the heat is with this version of the Young Bucks. Post-match, it's just weird watching them do post-match promos and being present and doing trad wrestling. It's class, but it's still surreal. It's all very surreal. I'm still getting used to it and enjoying it a great deal. Tony Schiavone talks about Sting and Darby Allin and how could you do it, etc., etc. Matthew Jackson then points out, we can hear you. You're clutching your pearls over our conduct and we'll fine you. And, how dare you? We brought you into this company and all the rest of it. And Nicholas Jackson takes it much further by shoulder barging Tony Schiavone to the ground. One minor complaint about a wonderful angle yet again is that Wardlow did not only an attack kind of on Schiavone, but he did it 3 or 4 months ago using the exact same shoulder barge movement. Tony Schiavone is so beloved, so goddamn beloved, that you should only do this once in a blue moon. I'm talking once every 2 years, because what happens is they get him down. There's a bit of heat, but it's not like, imagine if it never happened. Never once, ever. I keep going back to discipline is the key for professional wrestling. Anyway, so I'll pick them up off the floor, and they each get a hand, and you think, oh my God, that is the level of thought, detail, creativity that I associate with the Young Bucks of old / now new, because the way they pick them up is the exact setup for the EVP trigger, and they kind of tease it. It doesn't get that. Everyone in that building should be going, you can't do that. Yeah. It's Tony Schiavone. Maybe it's a bit too subtle. Anyway. Darby Allin comes out, he thwarts that, sends the Young Bucks scurrying, and then we've got differing thoughts on a promo that I don't think either of us thought was that great. I like the idea of them invoking the name, the idea rather than the name of Cody Rhodes, especially now. Yeah. Because it's like you can't talk about him at all, really. It's not how it's done, especially in such glowing terms. So I thought that was quite bold. There was a hint of realism there because it's something like, you're not meant to say that. Yeah. And that's the whole point of the work shoot. But at the same time, it was a bit exposition-y. Here's my history with you, condensed from 2019 to 2024. I just don't buy the fact that the Young Bucks wouldn't have seen anything in Darby Allin. That is a premise too far. And as well, they killed you last week. Yeah. Why are you talking at them? Take your bat to them. The numbers advantage will take over. You should have tried to kick their ass a little bit. Go out of the ropes. Your blood's on that jacket.
You know how to do it. You missile your way through them in every match. You know how to go between those ropes. Yeah. I always forget about that. I'm so fed-brained. The invisible wall is actually visible to me, and I never consider that I could just attack them. I don't love Darby Allin's delivery in these sort of promos. I've never really liked them. We were talking in the office a little bit about this. The mystique is better for me than him.
Such a great physical storyteller as well.
He is. It's always in the matches where Darby.
You love the silent films.
Yeah, those will know better. This is it. I don't know.
I really like them.
I don't know what I want out of Darby Allin as a way to promote his matches beyond just having matches, but then sometimes that's enough, with the way his character is and that. I don't think he comes across as
He's on your very rare wrestlers who can just wrestle list.
Yeah, there's not many of them, but I would watch Darby Allin matches all day. Brett, as great a promo as he was, if he never spoke, it wouldn't be any worse. I would still have who would wrestle? Don't know.
Brett and Darby Allin. Yeah, anyway, so what did you think of the match in the post match?
I didn't love the promo, but loved the idea behind it. I'll isolate my thoughts on one thing because I've seen a few separate. I didn't see a lot of takes in this Dynamite in general, but I saw some takes on this. I think it is an incredibly dated take of people you can't be putting Cody over. He's in the main event of WrestleMania. That's their show, right? Bollocks. It's 2024. I
think it's bollocks, but it's such a widely held belief that this is powerful as a result.
Yeah. I'd use that, if anything, it feels like a bit of a transgression for starters. I think AEW is at its best when it kind of, Tony Khan tried to do this and more power to him for it. Just say out loud, they don't own wrestling. We exist to prove that.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like Bryan invoking WrestleMania, the night after WrestleMania when he was going for Hangman Page. I defended that the next night, actually. Yeah. Where were you? It's okay to put over WWE as a good thing if it's a good thing. And in Cody's case, weren't even doing that.
I knew you'd like this.
No, they're not even putting over the Fed. They're putting over Cody.
I know.
He is right now being cast as wrestling's hero. Biggest show in the world, biggest star in the game. He's being put over as wrestling's hero.
It's literally the best man now.
Yeah.
Because he's
going to be that guy's best man. Yeah. Wrestling's hero thought Darby Allin.
Miro?
Wrestling's hero thought Darby Allin was a cool guy, and who's wrestling's other hero? Sting. And both of them think Darby Allin's a cool guy, and the Young Bucks don't. And that to me is really effective. I don't think it's anywhere near as sacred as it used to be, especially on AEW. It's one thing because WWE have always established this rule where it's just them and nobody else, and you'd never acknowledge anybody, and you get the ooh in the crowd when you hear another company's initials. AEW's never been like that about other promotions, and I really don't. If anything, for the fact that they mention every other promotion going, and you can say and do whatever you want about your indie background, CMLL, New Japan, by not mentioning WWE, you almost put it over as something more than that.
Yeah,
normalise it. I think it's another place where people work, and I thought that was. I thought it was pretty cool. They just outright said it. The Elite all thought it sucked, but one guy didn't, and God, I wish he was around. I
don't believe it.
Well, I don't believe it about Kenny. Especially
the Bucks would have loved Darby Allin.
Of course they would have. Yeah,
the first match.
But within the story, it's almost as if to say, look what's happening now. Now that your power's unchecked.
It does work because Cody was the one who worked Darby early.
Exactly.
And maybe he did draft him in. I don't think he would have to.
But you believe it in
fight hard. I mean, did you see the scene at the time?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Some of the people that they wanted to bring in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did bring in.
Yeah. But within kayfabe, it's I just don't like it when it veers over to the. Didn't like it with Double or Nothing. Don't like it now. Something really makes my itch about mentioning the Cali Click and the California Mates and all that sort of stuff. I don't know why, but I just think it's not very becoming of Darby Allin to speak like that. I think he gave Brandon Cutler and Jungle Boy jobs. Why would Darby Allin jumps off bridges for fun on a weekend? Why would that man care that some California friends of the Young Bucks got jobs?
He mentions it more than once, so evidently he does.
He's actually got, it's a CM Punk Miz thing.
Maybe.
He's a shoot got into, and that's why he
said Cali Click about Perry, the Double or Nothing build.
Mm-hmm. It's a weird thing that he's got into about, makes me...
Jack Perry was really good for a while.
Yeah.
Didn't really work out after the after the Christian Cage program.
Cutler's a Nepo hire.
It's great for a while. Cutler's spray.
Yeah.
That moment is a top 3 in AEW history.
It's weird when Darby speaks like that. It's not him. Well, obviously he is him, but it's not
Shouldn't
my
be.
perception of him as a character.
Nor should it be him.
No.
Willow Nightingale, with the help of Stokely Hathaway, defeats Sky Blue in the... Let me just check my notes. Yeah, the only women's match on Dynamite. And is it... hang on, sorry. Where are my manners? Sorry, I'm just checking. The penultimate match on the show before the men's main event.
Of course.
And again, because of the big heat angles, the violent matches, the high spots, hour and a half of Dynamite, well, it's time for the women. So they don't really get that much of a reaction. Willow does, and the match gets more heat than the usual low stakes sort of... it's not anything special. The basic thrust of the match, some of which I personally found a little hard to buy, is that Sky Blue was finding strategic opportunities to use Willow's size advantage against her in one spot. Willow takes to the top turnbuckle and Sky Blue hits a powerbomb.
Yeah.
And it all leads to, with sort of regrettable NXT face, the idea that Sky Blue cannot put Willow Nightingale away for love and the money, but she's kind of got the momentum, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the idea is she hits code blue and she's going to win.
Yeah.
You do a visual pin that last 15 seconds, which I find ridiculous considering how Willow Nightingale is the definition, and I don't really like this phrase, but she is a definition of must be protected at all costs, right? You know, that meme or whatever. Certainly that's true in wrestling because she's great and she's over and all the rest of it. And Stokely realizes, oh my God, she's in trouble. If I don't save her, Stat will think worse of me or whatever. Goes to... I quite like it.
It's weak, isn't it? It's story.
It's weak. I think I want to like it more than I actually like it. Anyway, Stokely goes on the apron, distracts the referee. Willow can kick out the code blue after 15 count and then hit the Dr. Bomb for the win. And that's the whole match in the story, and no one will ever remember in a million years.
Willow's...
It's just an afterthought, innit? I mean, I really like everyone involved, and they're just getting completely underserved.
I know the word is dying and maybe already dead, but Willow is yet another one of those wrestlers that is simply undeniable when she works.
She's clinging on for dear life.
There's certain things that she hits where you just think, well, she will always have work, and ideally she gets good work because she can gew, and like there's an obvious bond between the fans that people just will not give up on a Willow Nightingale, but that doesn't mean that she's going to be booked well. And I think that's what's going on here.
She's almost too innately over for her own good.
Yeah.
And I think she's very good at working the crowd and manipulating the crowd and actually strengthening that bond. I don't think people could come out and say, I like Willow. She's like really, really good as well.
It's the old WWE utility curse, I think.
Yeah.
Where if you found yourself in that spot, you were knackered because you were always going to be used but never going to be effectively used. You're never going to be pushed.
You always just rely on, I don't have to do anything here.
Yeah. And I think that like ultimately impacted the match because I think Sky Blue was given a lot with the knowledge of... And this was weird too. So Sky Blue was given a lot with the knowledge of what you were really focusing on was the Willow Nightingale, Stokely Hathaway storyline element of all of this. But in order to facilitate that, you give Sky Blue a ton of offense only for her to lose anyway. So it sort of feels a bit thrown away. And Sky Blue's got this sideways thing going on with Julia Hart, and that's going to feed into a tag match. And that was my other problem here. We're reaching a point now with Collision where... Like we always cynically predicted that it would end up as another Rampage, and it sort of has. But
A better Rampage,
absolutely.
Real Graps Rampage.
You got him bother on X, didn't you, for saying it? There was dark elements of...
It's good dark.
Good dark.
Real Graps Rampage, good dark.
Like one of your favourite roasts, good and dark. Yeah, is that a coffee thing?
I like light roasted because then you get the acidity and the fruity flavours and the floral notes.
So is a dark roast like an alkaline?
It's more like bitter taste.
Bitter taste, okay. Well, this left
acidity and bitterness depending on the level of the roast.
In my mouth, right? Okay. Because what you mentioned the point which I didn't think about, there's no Collision this week. Yes. And as part of that, this Collision story, this FUED, ended up on Dynamite. It's probably a lot of people that were like, what's all this about then? Like they've never seen like that. Which, you remember when somebody would randomly come off Dark and it's like, well, in actuality, they've been feeding for 7 weeks on Dark and here's the big one on Dynamite.
And you would just say this, you would just say,
what? There was a bit this, and like the commentators were just like, well, of course, yeah, there's all this stuff with Stokely. Is that like the fans in the building didn't seem to know half what was going on. There's a Statlander component to this and a Julia Hart component, and they were absolutely nowhere to be found. I think this assumed a little bit too much of the Dynamite audience.
Anyway, I should mention before that match or after it, skip my head on my notes, is that the Acclaimed and Bullet Club Gold, the Bang Bang Scissor Gang, have a little chat backstage. Jay White, what happened to that guy?
He's one of 6. That's what happened when you're one of 6.
And they say they should have a 12-man tag against some people.
Is it on Rampage? Oh, of course, there's no collision. So it's to air after this, so in front of this live crowd. Yeah.
My God, Jay White. If it's a problem, how good is he? I think people are, I don't know anymore. I think I used to have an idea. I used to think he was very, very good to great at times.
I wonder what the White Okada match will look like in an AEW ring. I wonder how it will feel different.
Heatless?
Because they were so great
Probably
together.
more heatless than the clap crowd ones there.
Yeah.
Not being funny, like they've done a number on Jay White, and it's not a good premonition for everybody else not named Okada and Omega and Ospreay and that tier.
I think he's one of them wrestlers that gives what he's getting. I think when he's positioned in, I think he was working against...
I don't think he was good in the Full Gear build.
No, he was working against the devil stuff, and I think he was othered a little bit as a result of it.
It's never said out that I remembered.
It's catchphrase stuff, isn't it? It's always he relies on his catchphase.
He's probably in the right group then.
I saw that Madison Square Garden with you, Kada.
Yeah.
You can build that again.
The Switchblade. Maybe he's in the right group.
Well,
it's weird. He's too talented for this. I'm being facetious. He's too talented for this. Drek.
That's why
Billy Gunn.
I don't like the matches where Billy Gunn gets focused upon, and the Guns are not that great. But that's why I'm broadly in favour of this group, because I don't care about this group. I don't care about the Acclaimed anymore.
You know what you like? You like the entrances.
Tell me what I like, Dad.
You like entrances, R-Truth, Bang Bang Scissors Gang.
Yes, continue.
And the Fed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's loads of stuff.
It's basically, can he shout it for the line of door?
Yeah.
Jey Uso.
You like Jey
I've been
Uso?
down since day one. I haven't, because I used to think they were terrible. No, I just think, I don't care that Jay White's not in main events.
I don't either, but...
I don't care that Jay White's not in main events. I don't care that...
He's more than this.
I don't care that the Acclaimed aren't having loads of matches, because I thought a lot of the matches flattered to deceive ultimately as a trio, especially because you have to apparently build up to the Billy Gunn hot tag where it just dominates. So I lost interest in Acclaimed matches. I've got no interest in Jay White in the main event right now because it's...
I'm not saying I want to be in the main event. I'm just saying it's got to be better than this.
But I like them enough as acts to have this. That's I don't love that. I'm not, it's
fundamentally.
They're not the Judgment Day. I wouldn't buy the T-shirt, but I like them. I like them as an act on television. So, oh yeah, these guys.
Fundamentally, I don't know how your brain works, but I think weirdly we'll have brain chemistry talking about the main event because we discussed it before we recorded. We both thought it was awesome because it was the tits.
It was.
I was clutching my pearls like Tony Schiavone. Texas Death Match for a international title subplot on TV. It could have been an ODQ, but regardless, this did just enough to preserve you're going to get some absolute chaos in a Texas Death Match in AEW. So it didn't heighten it, enhance the legend, but it didn't detract from it either. It was Matt Taven going up against Orange Cassidy. This match was it kicked so much ass on a lot of different levels. So they had this white hot start. Remember Full Gear 2019 when Omega and Moxley have their white hot start, and then Moxley finds himself over the barricade, and Omega just does this kung fu kick to the barricade. It's the best thing I've ever seen. I'm like, oh yeah. So Cassidy kind of does a leapfrog over the barricade. With his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
That sparks this sort of brawl in the crowd, which on the chain leads to the first sort of action set piece of the match, where it doesn't quite go well, but then it goes better than well, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So there's a table set up by the entrance stage, at which point, obviously, Taven's got the advantage because he's able to drape Cassidy over it. He goes for a diving elbow, and the table just kind of goes...
He wilts a bit.
Wilts, a wilty table. There was a wilty table last week, actually. Hangman Page.
That's right.
You know what they should do? Get some Japanese tables.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. Why? I know they say, it sucks to go through them. They never break. Do it.
The AEW commentary table as well, as we know, is too narrow because remember when they fell off? Remember the spot where they fell off? Like they were on the table.
Who did?
It was, it was in the Continental Classic. I think it was Swerve. Was it Swerve and Garcia, maybe? I can't remember. You got a better memory for this. But either...
different blocks?
Yeah, it wasn't them.
Regardless.
Yeah, and that table's quite narrow, isn't it? We're trying to move and they just fell off.
Yeah.
They just slid off.
Get some Japanese tables.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Or Be a thinking man's wrestler and smash into the side of it.
Or
Blade underneath it.
be as based, is that the word?
I don't know.
I don't know, that's got like a horrible etymology. I'll just use be as sick, be as beast as Kenny Omega.
Yes.
And bump on the underside of a table unless you're a bitch.
Remember the Okada match where he somehow aimed it to perfection?
Yeah, he's the best.
The table's like about as narrow as this microphone stand. He was like, right, I'll just contort my whole body into the exact size of it and then sit in it.
Yeah. It's the best.
Perfect.
So what happens is it goes, table wilts, it's not exactly great. Taven is like, well, you know what? I'm a professional wrestler. I have the skill, or I should have the skill of improvisation.
Ring of Honor crowds did that to me for about 3 years, so I can cope with this.
So then he gets the table that does not break. He props it up against the side of the entrance ramp, just suplexes Cassidy through it.
Really liked it.
Great bit of improvisation. He instantly, it's one of those great rescue jobs of a match. You know what my favorite ever is? When the blood happens. This is 2010 Fed. CM Punk, Rey Mysterio, and there's blood, and it's CM Punk's bleeding, and he's like, this match is dying on its arse. All the momentum we built is lost. I have to get stitched up. The second that doctor gets out of there, he goes, sorry, Ray, and just kills him. It's like, I was like more into it than I had been when it was rocking.
Yeah.
So the match starts to rock when Taven, with his brilliant improvisational skill, actually gets a good table spot. And then he kind of just, they make their way, the pair of them, down to the ring via the ramp by Taven killing him on the ramp. These awesome strikes, like Matt Taven. I feel for him in a way because he's really, really great at that hybrid style that's kind of going out of fashion because people have seen a lot of it. And yet he's so great at it that I'm like bang into it when I watch him do it. Like when they went back in the ring, he has this really cool way to like push back off the turnbuckle, roll his body to outwit Orange Cassidy and then launch into another strike. He eventually props Cassidy up against the table just to take a plancha spot.
Oh my God.
Face first.
Wow.
What a terrifying header he took. One of the best bumps on Dynamite I've seen in quite some time.
If they're doing that redesign in March, get that in the video package.
Yes.
'Cause it is a splat.
It's a splat, totally incredible bump from Taven, who's clearly dying for this opportunity, and fair play to him. A lot of people are praising him to the hilt, and rightly so, this morning. Eventually, Orange Cassidy from under the ring retrieves a heart-shaped Valentine's box addressed to him from Chuck Taylor. I really like this. The best friends have always got this creative way around the plunder match and all these blow-offs. And it turns out there's not chocolate in there. There's thumbtacks. The thumbtacks go on the canvas. This is where, if I was feeling really pedantic, and I often do, I'd be like, right, okay, you're bumping on these tacks and you're not really selling them because I think they've realised we don't have much time left here. There's a much better version of this match if it's 5 minutes longer, but the fact that it isn't leads to this sort of like chaos and Dynamite feel, if you like. They trade spots on the thumbtacks, and then chairs get thrown literally into the mix by Mike Bennett, whose interference is thwarted by Trent, who's again there to save Orange Cassidy's ass, and maybe it's a thankless task, and maybe that could sort of incite a development within the best friends, a split, if you like. And then eventually, after giving him a spike DDT on the thumbtacks, and then they're in his elbows on Taven's like, I'm done here. He gets beach breaked, and then 1, 2, 3, and that's the end of the show. And my bloody Valentine, Orange Cassidy, I like him a lot more than I did last week. I've always loved him, but I'm no longer bored of him.
A complete triumph.
It's so great.
It'd be unfair to call it an over delivery because, as you point out, like Matt Taven probably doesn't get the credit he often deserves, and Orange Cassidy is Orange Cassidy. However, it never, on a graphic, felt like the main event of a show. It never felt like a headline of the Texas Death. Felt weird that it was even included on there because the best friends and the Undisputed Kingdom rivalry it's not even really arrived at that point, and yet they just accelerated there anyway.
I think basically they had some idea for some heart-shaped box plunder, and they were in Texas, so they thought that's all.
Yeah, the wrestlers had to work up to the stipulation and did it. And I think that was such an achievement on their part. Like I say, nothing to do with their individual abilities.
There's a big gusher of a juice job on this show.
Orange Cassidy.
Orange Cassidy was covered in blood, and Hangman Page said the word.
He did.
That's what makes Dynamite Dynamite.
These are the things. The
two things.
Tunnels in March, S-word, blood.
Tunnels, S-word, blood.
If you can get 5, that becomes AEW SmackDown Fist. If you can get 5 cliched things that's got to come back, then you've got the SmackDown Fist.
Shut up.
With your pen, holding it. Like that. Match was great. Really, really great. You're like the Orange Cassidy point. I think nobody, honestly, I think you're lying if you say so. Nobody honestly is suggesting this run is anywhere near as good as the last one. You just simply do not buy. It's weird. He's having matches like this. The Ishii one's another example where he's like getting his arse handed to him, and yet it doesn't feel like when he was selling injuries in the last run. It was like he got his bandaged hand and he was like, oh, now my back's knacking. This doesn't feel like that at all, even though he's defending his title just as much, and in some cases in far more brutal matches, just because wrestling's fake, I guess, and that's not the story they're telling.
Just a retread.
Yeah. And yet they get something like this. The two men get something like this. The energy was fantastic throughout. It's so hard to summon that energy, as we often say. Plunder matches are just as cliched and as overdone as wrestler matches at this point, and yet this still felt fresh and innovative. Have to give credit to Tony Khan. This was a gutsy booking in hindsight. Showed a lot of faith in the wrestlers, and wrestlers repaid that faith with a match.
As soon as I saw the Valentine's box, I was like, this is why it's allowed.
Yeah, like people will remember this match. If only for little spots like that. I think the violence ultimately does get forgotten because it gets replaced by next week's violence. But the spot, for example,
hasn't been violent enough for me recently.
The splash onto the thumbtacks. When
aye,
that's so preposterous when you think about it. But in his mind, he thought, I have drilled Cassidy into these tacks.
The tip of your dick goes on them.
And what's going to drill him into them even more?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one thing to take a flat back, right?
But he's like,
I would take a flat back into tacks.
Effectively a frog splash.
If you paid me.
The whole point of a frog splash
what if your dick?
Use your own body as proportional to that other person's body, and you're doing that onto pins, and it's there, down to, below your
tip of your dick.
Below your dick and balls. So yeah, it's like, he could have had that happen to him. So the risk wasn't worth the reward, but that's what happens when the men get driven to it. There
was a tip of the thumbtack in the urethra.
Wasn't there a spot on a garbage indie where there was
syringe dick? I think
syringe. That was it. Hanging out with someone's cack.
Someone's cack.
This is not like a sort of syringe cack match. Next week on Dynamite, we've got to level up. No. So great. Matt Taven's role within... Nothing will change. Matt Taven's role within Undisputed Kingdom, the Ring of Honor tag belts, none of it will matter. None of it will... This won't be that.
Maybe a lovely night for him, though.
Yeah, maybe AEW is more of a meritocracy now, and this will be like a thing, but...
We've got Carter and Ospreay coming in.
Aye. A great night for a man that's probably had more than he's been given credit for in his career.
Indeed.
That's fair to say, isn't it?
It's fair to say, and it's a nice way to end the podcast. We evidently enjoyed Dynamite to varying extents, but we both enjoyed it. Let us know what you thought of the show on X at WhatCultureWWE. Whilst you're there, you can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow me at Sidgwick. Again, you can follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. Don't forget to subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Thank you very much for spending part of your day with us. We always appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of it.